Sol Campbell was once the heart of Tottenham's team, hailed as one of the greatest defenders in the country, and captained Spurs to League Cup glory in 1999. 2 years later, however, and the Tottenham Academy graduate had signed for their biggest rivals Arsenal on a free deal. This left the football world in utter shock, and to truly understand just how big of a betrayal this was, we have to go back to Campbell's years at Tottenham. Campbell joined Tottenham's youth system at 14 years old, and just 4 years later in December 1992, he was substituted on for his Premier League debut against Chelsea. During the brief time he was on the field, he scored a debut goal to make it 2-1, a promising start to his senior career. Despite this, it wasn't until the start of the next season when Campbell was given another chance in the first team, and when that chance arrived, he seized it. He shined in his first start for the club and proceeded to play 34 Premier League matches, emerging as one of the most promising defensive talents in England. Tottenham recognised his potential, tying him down to a 4-year contract extension at the end of the season. In the coming years, Campbell established himself as one of the best centre-backs in the country, and in 1996, he made his senior debut for the English national team. Despite his personal progress, however, Tottenham weren't doing great, consistently finishing mid-table. Campbell was their shining light in a dark period for the club, and in 1998, their academy graduate was appointed as captain. In his first season wearing the armbands, Campbell captained Tottenham to a League Cup final victory over Leicester City, putting an end to an 8-year trophy drought. His stellar performances throughout the season also earned him a spot in the PFA Team of the Year, solidifying his status as a club legend in the making. However, behind the scenes, Campbell was starting to become discontent with the club for a multitude of reasons. For starters, his relationship with many of the managers had been rocky, and Tottenham were making no progress in the league, never finishing above 7th during his time there. As well as this, Campbell had an allegation of assault lodged against him by a steward at Derby County, and whilst the case was ongoing, Spurs showed him a lack of support which he didn't appreciate. Away from this, English football was adjusting to the recently introduced Bosman ruling, which allowed players to leave for free at the end of their contracts. Before the Bosman ruling, a player couldn't leave at the end of their deal unless that club agreed to let him go on a free, or that club received an agreed fee from a buying club. As a result, clubs now had to start making contract offers earlier, as well as accept higher wage demands, as if they didn't, they could lose their players for nothing. Not wanting to lose their star player, Tottenham held meetings with Campbell where they laid out their plans for the future, but he was said to be uninterested. This concerned the higher-ups of the club, who feared the catastrophic situation of losing one of the most valuable centre-backs in the world and receiving nothing for him. From their point of view, if they were to lose Campbell, ideally would have been for a big fee in the summer of 2000, 1 year before his contract expired. They did receive offers for him that summer, as Manchester United and Leeds United offered £18 million for Campbell. Although Spurs would have rather Campbell extend his contract, this was money that could help rebuild the team and ease the blow of losing their captain. Campbell, however, decided to stay for his final year to see if the situation at Spurs would improve, and if it didn't, he could just leave for free and receive higher wages than he would if there was a transfer fee. Spurs tried to offer him one of the best contracts in the country, but as things stood, Campbell wasn't convinced he'd reach the elite level he aspired to play at, and didn't even want to sit down and speak to the club. Despite this, Campbell publicly assured the fans he'd be staying, with the most infamous example coming from a Sky Sports post-match interview in the new year.
What about your situation, Sol? Will you be staying at Tottenham?
I'm staying.
A month before this interview, Alan Sugar stepped down as the club's chairman after selling 27% of his shares to ENIC, shifting the responsibility of convincing Campbell to stay onto vice chairman David Buckler and executive chairman Daniel Levy. This wasn't an easy task, as Europe's elite clubs began to contact Campbell and his agent in February 2001, with his contract soon expiring. However, according to Campbell's agent, their position was they weren't going to discuss terms with anybody until they had sorted out what was happening with Spurs, seeing Bayern Munich and Real Madrid pull out. A few months later, Campbell had his final meeting with Tottenham, where he talked about numbers and what bonuses he'd receive based on the team's achievements. But Campbell thought to himself, how are we going to reach these goals if we aren't buying any new players? And so on the 27th of May 2001, Tottenham revealed Sol had opted to leave despite their offer to make him the highest paid player in their history and one of the biggest earners in the Premiership. Campbell then released his own statement, saying his decision has been based purely on football and he'll be 27 in September and needs to be playing in a major European club competition sooner rather than later. Campbell was gone, and the expectation was they'd move to a club outside of England, with almost no one considering Arsenal as a possible destination, especially as they had told Spurs monthly he would never play for Arsenal. Arsene Wenger, however, was a long-time admirer of the player and wanted to capitalise on the opportunity, and also hoped a signing of Campbell's calibre would convince Patrick Vieira to stay at the club. When initial contact was made, Sol was extremely reluctant and insisted Arsenal vice chairman David Dean that if they were going to meet, it had to be very discreet. And so they met multiple times late at night in Dean's garden at Totteridge, and after a while, Campbell warmed to the idea of making a switch across North London. Arsenal had won the double in 1998 and were runners-up in the Premier League in the 3 seasons since, looking like the most likely side to break Manchester United's dominance. The biggest threats to Arsenal were Barcelona and Inter Milan's interest, but they were in luck as both clubs were going through a difficult period. Inter Milan had finished 5th in the Serie A and hadn't qualified for the Champions League, and although Barcelona were offering an incredible wage, they had finished 4th in La Liga and barely clinched Champions League football. In the words of his agent, Campbell was one of the few players who seriously did not put money before football, and so despite Arsenal offering the lowest wage, he chose them. At Arsenal, he'd be playing under a manager with a clear ideology whose job was stable and would be surrounded by elite teammates, aligning perfectly with his aspirations. Once the deal was finalised, all that remained was the announcement, with Arsenal calling a press conference at their ground on the 3rd of July 2001. The media expected it to be the announcement of £6 million goalkeeper Richard Wright, so very few journalists showed up, so you can imagine the shock when Arsene Wenger walked in the room with their biggest rival's star player. His new Arsenal teammates were equally dumbfounded, struggling to comprehend that the man who was a Tottenham hero was now part of their squad instead. The North London derby had always been a heated rivalry, but the intensity reached new levels on Campbell's return to Tottenham's grounds, with him facing relentless abuse and was labelled a Judas by thousands of the stands. Campbell's success at Arsenal added salt to the wounds of Tottenham fans, who witnessed him do the double in his first season and then play a crucial role in their invincible season, winning the league at Tottenham's very own ground, White Hart Lane. He later taunted Spurs, and always wanted to win the league at White Hart Lane, so he left and joined Arsenal. Campbell's 4 trophies in 5 years at Arsenal cemented him as an Arsenal icon, but a villain in the eyes of Tottenham fans, who will never forgive him for such a monumental betrayal.